Welcome to Caffeine Fix PHX. You ready?
I am.
Let's roll. With apologies to Jerry Seinfeld, welcome to Coffee and Cereal in Cars. Today we take to the road to introduce the story of Espress-O's, the extraordinary coffee cereal formulated right in the car.
My name is Tim Keyboars, and I am the founder, CEO, president of Keyboars Family Foods, the maker of Espress-O cereal, the first cereal made just for adults. I looked up every verse in the Bible that had to do with a good smell, and there was about 30 or 40 I could have used, and that's the one that I thought was, well, it did that, and it also accomplished kind of what our mission was with the cereal. So
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about that. It's an interesting concept, something that you don't normally see, a coffee cereal.
So, you know, I came up with the idea, and part of the reason we're doing things today this way is I was driving to work one day and I was eating chocolate cereal, let's say, out of a cup. And typically that's not unusual when I'm on my way to work. I'm a local physician and had wished that I had had time to make coffee and thought about the idea of stopping, but knew that I'd be another 15 minutes late. And I thought to myself, with 13 different varieties of the cereal that I was eating, why didn't they ever make one that had coffee in it? And there spawned the idea for Espress-O's.
It's a great idea. It really is. I mean, when you think about it, and being in the line of work that you're in, you know, you're running from patient to patient, you don't have time to eat, you know, there's no downtime, and it's a great little energy pick-me-up.
That's somewhat of the intention. It was, you know, I work in emergency rooms, and you know, certainly we literally have no breaks. If you have a break, it's because you kind of forced one and you went and grabbed something to eat and sat down, and usually you're working the entire time that you're eating. And I can't tell you that people seem to wait until you take a bite to ask you a question. So having something,
inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this thought came to me as something that I could bring along, and if somebody is working or studying or hiking, and they can take this with them in their backpack or put it in their cup holder in their car, and pour it in their mouth, you can eat it dry or you can add milk to it. It's just as good either way, and I could say about half the people do one, half do the other, and it's been well received. As a matter of fact, from the very first beginnings of it, when we were designing it, when the samples were sent to me, kids used to gather around the UPS office where it was sent from and the little kitchen where it was made because they wanted some. Not that it's made for kids, but somehow they'd show up at the door.
I think kids will love this, quite honestly, if their parents will allow them to have it.
Every cup has about 2 cups of dark roasted coffee in it. And so you have the equivalent of about 2 cups of dark roasted coffee caffeine in it, which is somewhere around 180 to 200 milligrams of caffeine. And so it is meant to be a coffee delivery system, as I call it, in that if you didn't get your coffee in any other way, this will take care of it in a different way. And it also gives you your breakfast.
Well, which was the other kind of thing that we're illustrating here. We're on the go, and a lot of people don't have time to eat something before they hit the road. So this is a great thing that you can eat safely in the car.
Absolutely.
It's a great idea.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's like I said, it's been well received, and what we're finding is anything that calls itself chocolate cereal, it usually has cocoa powder in it, but they don't use actual chocolate. There's no cocoa butter. There's, you know, just the powder itself. And so in this case, we wanted to try to do something that was more high-end, a little more gourmet. And so I reached out specifically to Guittard chocolate. I wanted a good Northern California chocolate company, one that someone had heard of maybe, but not one that's been around so much that it's saturated the market. And unfortunately, we were able to find some of their best dark chocolate and white chocolate for this cereal, and then I decided I wanted to try to find the best source of coffee that I could in the state of Arizona at least, and so I decided to go to Whole Foods and walk their aisle and see what local coffee roasters they put on the shelf, because I knew that someday may want to get into that store. And ultimately, of those that were on the shelf, one of the ones that stood out was the roastery of Cave Creek. And I literally studied all of the local coffee roasters that I could find that made things in great enough quantities, and reached out to most of them. But when I reached out to Dave Anderson with the roastery of Cave Creek, he immediately answered his phone. He was terribly friendly, so friendly, and ultimately we met the very next day. I talked to him for the first time on a Friday. I met him on a Saturday morning, and he's this Renaissance man. He's kind of like the most interesting man in the world. He was immediately excited about it, and he immediately went to work on Espress-O's 1.0, a blend of coffee beans specifically made for the cereal, and that's what we've been using ever since. He got it right the first time. He had blended together, as I recall, beans from Mexico and Guatemala that were specifically picked for their chocolate overtones and their sweetness, and ultimately he really knows what he's doing.
He dialed it in, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's where we're going right now. We're driving up to Cave Creek, on Cave Creek Road, to the roastery of Cave Creek, so we can take a look inside that roastery and show you where the beans come from.
We were using a certain Espress-O, and which falls right in line with the name Espress-Os, and there were a number of variations that we experimented with, and with the grind density and so on. But it's been what, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, we've been working on this since 2012.
Okay.
I think I met you in
Gosh,
2013.
way longer than that. No kidding. Well,
it took me a while.
That's how fast time goes.
The way that we use the coffee in the cereal, we take an oat ring, and ultimately we create what's called a slurry. The slurry is a combination of water, cane sugar, a little bit of cocoa powder, and a little bit of salt, and then also we take espresso beans. They're ground down to a flour. That's all stirred into this slurry so that we can spray it on every piece of cereal. So 100% of Espress-O's has the coffee on it, as well as some flavor to it. In addition to that, that slurry locks in, seals the cereal so that we can move on to the next phase. So about 50% of it is done, but then we take 20% of it and we take Guittard's Best White Chocolate and we coat 20% of it in white chocolate so that that piece is the cream in your coffee. That's where that comes in. And then the last 30% of it is the star of the show. We take 30% of it that's already been coated in the slurry. We add Guittard's Best Dark Chocolate. We take Dave's Espress-O's 1.0 special blend of coffee beans that he created just for us. We burr grind it to get the best flavor and oils out of it. And we apply those coffee nibs to the dark chocolate piece so that when you eat it, you truly get that coffee. We're working with universities, especially Grand Canyon University, and trying to broaden our reach to the students, because I think it's perfect for college students, and they're the ones that grasp onto it and buy it probably more often than anyone. So, and then of course we're also working on the new products, and our next product that would be a chai tea version. We're fine-tuning it and trying to find somebody at GCU, one of the students, to help us design the packaging for it. And that's what's coming next. But then we've also got about 2 or 3 other flavors we're working on, and even a version that might be keto friendly for all those out there who are looking for something after their workouts that tastes just as good as the regular Espress-O's, but something they can eat that's based on the things that are in the keto diet. So these are the things we're working on right now. Well, I'll just tell you, my brother-in-law, as again, things happen that you don't know are going to happen. He happens to go to church with the Danzeisen family, and one day he said to me, "You've got cereal, and they've got the best milk in town, so why don't you want to sit down and talk to them?" And I thought, well, yeah, that would be incredible. If I could only just co-market with them and potentially, when we sell cereal, pour their milk into it. Obviously, it's going to taste amazing, so having them on our side would be great. So we did. We had a good meeting, and everything went very well. And then I had a second meeting, and this time with the family members of the Danzeisen Dairy. And ultimately, they asked me if they could distribute espressos with their milk because they want to test the waters and distribution. And ultimately, with their assistance, that has been an amazing godsend, and that they're the ones that helped us get into, to some degree, AJ's, but also they alone helped us get into Sprouts and other places that we're currently working on. And more than anything, that the fact that they can get to anywhere in the state. They're in almost every grocery store in Arizona, and their trucks are refrigerated, and our cereal needs to be temperature controlled, so it works out perfectly. And boy, we love the Danzeisen family. Their milk is amazing.
To me, it's amazing to see the fortitude, the tenacity of what it takes to take an idea and bring it to fruition and then create a business out of it. It's just so fulfilling to hear people's trials, tribulations turned into something that they can be really proud of, and in some ways it's taken their life in a direction they hadn't planned.
That's absolutely true, and the fact is that my intention is to try to use this as an opportunity to get other people involved and try to expand their lives in ways that they hadn't planned. I've been blessed in a lot of ways, but I think sometimes you don't know what your purpose is or what the plan is for you, and you try to do your best to figure it out. And in this case, I know a lot of people who work very hard at doing things that may not be very impressive work or appreciated work, but they put their heart and soul into it. And I would love to gather those people together and try to give them a job they enjoy and pay them well to do it. And that's really what I've wanted to do with Keyboard's Family Foods, and I'm hoping Espress-O's is the way that we get to that. So that's I guess what I'd say I'm most excited about, beyond the fact that I like cereal, coffee, and chocolate.
And this is really good cereal and coffee and chocolate. And by the way, this is going to be a close to coffee and cereal in cars for the first time on our show.
Well,
Thanks.
I'm not a comedian.
And neither am I, but thanks so much for sharing your story and spending time with us today, Tim.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.